Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici. Welcome, my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to my channel, Fountain Pen Therapy. Therapy I got for you is a therapy that I've been waiting for quite a while. And that is a therapy that's given to us by this giant of a pen that some people may wonder is bigger better, you know. I'm very excited. I've been excited about this pen for a while. And, you know, we're always led to believe that bigger is better. We shall see. We shall see. Especially when I'm starting to get, I don't know, a bug for smaller pens, you know, and those slimmer, nib settings and sections. And is it more comfortable to write with a smaller pen as opposed to this giant? Well, stay tuned. Does it perform? Is it live up to expectations? Is all the hype worthwhile? Stay tuned for my review of the WINGSUNG-JUNLAI 930. Okay, so we're back with the pens. I say pens because I ordered two. I ordered this chrome or silver black with a medium nib and the gold trimming black version with the broad nib. We'll use the gold for more detailed analysis. Obviously, the first thing you notice is how big this pen really is. As compared to my 630, you can see it's a huge difference. I mean, the difference is not negligible. It's substantive. And but apart from that, I should say, it's a complete copy in terms of design. It's exactly the same design. The only difference is that the trimmings, the band, and the clip, and the body are just bigger in all respects. So the band, first of all, the band is really smooth, well integrated, no sharp edges. It has the same inscriptions. It has Yunlai 930 made in Shanghai, whereas this one has 630 as opposed to 930. But it's the same principle. Both the ring around the bottom finial and the top are slightly beveled, so you can feel it, but no sharp edges. The clip is stiff, but I would say functional. Okay, that resin is for precious resin or acrylic, call it whatever you wish. Not a problem in my view. Very nice. Feels substantive. Feels like it's rich. Feels like it's good quality, just like a Mont Blanc is. So very comparable. You could argue that that clip could be better finished, but you know, I've seen clips that are even worse than that. Let's keep in mind that this is a $50 pen, or I'll put the exact price on the screen, but you know, it's not $2,000. So there you have that. Now let's just compare. Let's just see how many turns. Okay, one turn. Now what you do notice is that again it has that kind of, it really it goes in, and then it doesn't have that smooth quality in terms of, at the end, you have to kind of give it another turn to really make sure it's tight. And when you untie it, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a pain. It's not as smooth as I would like it, but it's still functional. It certainly tightens the pen to the point where, sealing should not be an issue, if that's why it's there. But once we get inside, it is a piston filler. The window, now it's filled, so I'm not sure you could see that but you can see it's kind of that striped design. I'm not sure. I think the 630 came either with a striped design or a full clear window. I'm not sure this one will come in both designs. On the gold trimmed pen, you have a dual colored beautiful nib, and that's the pièce de résistance with a huge plastic feed. Now when you compare it to the 630, here's the comparison. I think that the 930 nib and the engraving is much nicer than that on the 630. That's my view. Resembles more like a Mont Blanc. The feeds are very similar, just one much bigger than the other. Okay. In terms of the nib on the chromed or silver trimmed pen, it comes with a silver or a chrome nib, fully chrome, which is nice. You can see B and M clearly inscribed on the nib, and of course that broad tipping is so huge. I'm looking forward to see what the difference is going to be between these two. But you can see that big knob there for the broad nib. But otherwise, very nice. There you have it. What else is there to discuss? The cap. Let's see what we see inside the cap. Well, I see a little step down, which should assist the sealing mechanism, I think, very nicely. It's just a screwing bolt that's holding together that clip is octagonal, so you need a special screwdriver, as opposed to the 630 where the slit there, and you can't see it properly, but there you go, is just a straight lined screwdriver would serve the purpose there. But otherwise pretty similar caps. Never had a drawing issue with the Wingsung 630, and I suspect that I won't have any drawing issues with the 930. It is a big pen, no doubt in my mind, and we'll do some detailed size and pen comparisons to give us an indication of how big really it is. We'll see how comfortable it is. We'll do some writing. We'll take down some measurements. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're back for a pen and size comparison. Now, the first thing that a pen like this generates is some curiosity as to whether or not that pen, which when received appears to be the biggest pen in our collection, is in fact the biggest pen on the market. That's the first question I ask. And how does it compare to other giants? And I think the comparison is fun to make. Now, I've got here a series of pens on this side, which are in fact represent the biggest pens in my collection. And we'll take a look at and compare all of that. But before we do so, because I know ultimately the comparison will lead me to compare, pens posted. This pen does post, and it posts ridiculously long, but it does post. So we're going to have to do a comparison of whether or not, where does it situate itself in terms of in terms of posting. We'll have no choice, and we'll have no choice but to remove these pens from this box or this tray and use a bigger tray. So we'll be right back for that. But all in time. First of all, what are the pens you've got here? First of all, I'd like to show you just a little bit of an evolution. Now, I do not own a 628, a Wingsung 628. This is the Wingsung 629, but with the flat top. This is the Wingsung 630 with the flat top. And this is the Wingsung 630 with the torpedo shape. And you can see the difference. Let me just remove this pen between the two. This is the difference between the 630 and the 930. I mean, it's just not a small difference. It's a huge, huge difference. In terms of the rest, it's pretty comparable, I would say to you, in terms of design. The clip is the same. The center band is the same. And the rest of it is quite similar, if not identical, other than the size. We'll take a look at a comparison of the nibs in a second. But having said that, this is, I added in this mix. This is a huge titanium big pen JD. There's really no name for it, that I purchased on the internet. And it was, at the time that I purchased it, it came with a big Junlai number 8 nib, a little bit bigger than the Mont Blanc. So I wanted to compare it to the new 930, and even then, it doesn't compare. It's huge. The 930 is even bigger than that one. Now, this one here is not the official or the genuine custom Marushi, Pilot custom Marushi, but it is almost an identical replica of it. It's the JD big metal pen, also known as Montefiore, also Junlai. As you can see, even then, in terms of girth, it compares. But even then, this pen would overshadow, be at least capped, much bigger than the the Pilot custom Marushi. These are a series of Ranga pens. You know, from the Model 5 to the Splendor one here, the Splendor number 2 here. This is the Mammoth number 9. So you can see the Mammoth is bigger, and most of these Rangas are bigger. But you know, other than this one, which has a number 8 size nib, and this one is a number 9, and we'll take a look at it in a second. The rest of these pens really only have much smaller nibs. In fact, why don't we look at the pens uncapped before we switch trays for a posted comparison? Okay, so here you have the pens uncapped. And this is an important comparison because the likelihood of anybody using any of these big pens posted are, I think, slim at best. So this is an important comparison because these pens would be typically used unposted. But in terms of length, you can see that it is not the biggest pen. The Mammoth number 9 definitely is bigger. Now, I don't own a Magna Carta, 1,000, I believe, or 10,000, I forget. I think it's 1,000, with that big, huge nib. Nor do I own a Namiki Emperor, which I understand is a huge nib. Nor do I own the original of this custom Marushi, which has a big nib. But you can see that with the rest of them, the Mammoth is still the biggest pen, at least in my collection. Now, if we can just shift everything and just kind of compare the nibs, so you can better appreciate the size of that number 9 Wingsung. Now, first of all, these are all number 6 nibs. This is a number 6 nib. This is a number 8 Junlai. These are the 2 Wingsung. And this is a Junlai. So why don't we, just so that you can see it next to each other. Okay, here we go. that's a comparison of the two Wingsung nibs. Now, we've already seen a comparison of the nibs close up, so we don't need to repeat that. But from a distance, you can tell the difference is enormous. And as I've already mentioned, I think the engraving on this nib is just perfect as compared to the 630. Now, how does it compare to the Canwright number 9? As you can see, the Canwright appears to be, really stuck inside of the section, a little more than the 930. 930 has a more of a traditional shape, I would say to you, where the nib kind of, gets smaller as it goes in. Here, the girth and the sheer size appears to be wider in some respects, but otherwise, in terms of length, it is much bigger. So that's a comparison for you. Isn't that fun? What I'm going to do is I'm going to change train. We're going to post all these pens and see where things are in terms of posted comparison. Now, in terms of a posted comparison, I've only included the big pens, not the other ones. First of all, in terms of comparison with the 630, I think that this 930 is a really nice poster. It posts really deeply and securely, especially as compared to the rest. I think the rest, especially the Mammoth, it's just ridiculous. You cannot write with that posted. But I think you can get away. These pens are so big they don't fit in their slots. I think you can get away with posting this pen. It is unusually long and back-weighted, no doubt. But, you can get away with it without, sacrificing too much of a writing experience. The rest of these, the same thing goes with this JD Big Pen, which is the custom Urushi clone. Now, I don't know how the original posts, but I suspect that it does post. And even then, would you want to post an Urushi pen? I'm not sure. But the rest, as you can see, are just ridiculously long. So there's really no point in posting those pens. But again, surprisingly enough, this pen is not that bad when it's posted. Just that nib is huge. And you find yourself very, very far away from the writing surface, if you will. But there you have the pens compared and posted, at least the large pens. What I'd like to do next is to show you how does this compare to some other larger pens, normal larger pens. Be right back. Okay, here is the pen alongside some of the pens that I would consider to be large pens, if you will. First of all, these two are your 149 and your Sailor King of Pen. As you can see, the 930 is just ridiculously overshadowing both of them. Even the Pelikan M1000 doesn't compete in terms of size. We know that the Dolce Vita, as girthy as it is not a long pen, but in terms of girth, you can tell that the girth is quite a big, and that's really oversized, and it rivals, at least at the biggest section here, it rivals with the 930 rivals with the oversized Dolce Vita, and even the cap. I would say to you, this cap does have this large band, which is very 3D-ish and thick, a lot of definition there and a lot of relief as compared to this one. But otherwise, I think in terms of girth, it compares. I've included the Magna Carta M800, the 800, just because of the nib, and we'll take a look at the nib in a second. But I'm really curious to see how the nibs compare. So there you have the comparison with the other known oversized pens. Capped. Okay, we're back. Pens uncapped. Here's a comparison of the pens uncapped. Obviously, the 930 is much bigger, but I wanted to give you an idea of how much longer this 930 truly is compared to. I mean, these big pens, normally considered big pens, the rest of them dwarf compared to that 930. So you can see much, much bigger. Now, having said that, let's take a look at the nibs. I'm going to push all the nibs up so we can maybe blow them up and see how they compare. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, that number 9 is just huge, much bigger than the Magna Carta and the rest, which are really number 8 size nibs. Some people refer the Mont Blanc as a number 9. I'm not sure why, maybe because it's a little bit larger. And of course, the M1000 has its own kind of measurement. It's a huge nib. But there again, the rest of them dwarf as compared to the big 930, and they call that a number 9. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, this is a number 8. The difference is enormous. I mean, I'm wondering if it's not a number 10. It would have been interesting to see the Magna Carta 1000 just to see how it would compare, but unfortunately, I don't have it in my collection, at least not yet. So there is the comparison of these pens. I'll be back with a posted comparison. Okay, I didn't want to change. I should have perhaps changed just the tray, but just to show you that I think the biggest one next to the 930 just much bigger, even posted, are the Delta and the 1000. Both post comfortably, but you can tell they just barely fit here. This one I didn't post because it doesn't. So she's out of the competition, so to speak. But you can see that there again, the other pens just dwarf compared to the big 930, which is a huge. But again, I'm very surprised at the quality or the feel of this posting. Very unusual, but doable. So that's a lot of fun. Here, I'm not going to put that back. So there you have a very detailed comparison. I think it gives you an idea of how gigantic this pen really is. Having said that, we put up some measurements, and we will then do a writing sample. Okay, so here's a writing sample, and maybe I should just preface this by the following. I did tape my first impression of both pens, the medium and the broad, and concluded after that I was not sure about the writing experience that I just went through. First of all, pen appeared to ink my fingers, and I was wondering whether or not there was any leaks. So my fingers were all inked up. Tried to get rid of the ink and wasn't successful. Then when I came back to the pen, I wasn't sure whether the stains I had on my fingers were old stains or new stains. And I continued with the review anyway, and I did tape it all. And then found an enormous difference between the two nibs, and at the end concluded that I wasn't sure. That I still thought the pen was worth buying, but that I wasn't sure. And that I would revisit after I've had the opportunity to write with the pen for a little while and just, really make up my mind. And after that video, I felt that I was shortchanging you guys, because some of you may be waiting for this in order to make a decision, and ask you to wait another week. I just felt uncomfortable with that. So what I did is I spent a day writing with this pen. I mean, don't get me wrong, I spent a whole day writing. I have other things to do, but I spent the evening writing with these pens, and said that I would come back the following day to finish my review, and that's what I did. And so what I propose is that with that in the backdrop, I'm going to do this writing sample, and we'll take things from there. And then I will give you my honest assessment of the situation. So without any further ado, let's go to my overhead camera and see what's up. Now, first thing I want to mention is that I'm not going to start with the broad nib. I'm going to start with the medium nib. First thing, I don't see any leakage there. What I did notice is that that's a big nib, okay, with a big feed, with a lot of ink there. If you shake this pen, the chances are you're going to get some spillage. So, that's just, I think, the nature of the beast, okay, and that's literal. So let's look at the medium first. This is the WINGSUng-JUNLAI. Now, is it Jin or Jun? Junlai. $9.30. And this is black silver trimming. The nib is a number 9 steel. It's important to mention it's steel because the Junlai 900, I think, exists with a gold number 9 nib. So number 9 steel medium. The ink is, this one is the scribbling green Mediterranean. Now, first thing I want you to notice is that I can't control this pen in the sense that I'm not comfortable with it. I don't think it's the girth. I think it's the fact that it has no flare. So the pen, my fingers have a tendency to slip down to the point where I'm losing control. So I almost have to hold it up higher. And if you do, the threads here are very smooth, so it's not a problem. Now, the line is quite fine for a medium. The feel is fairly stiff. Smooth, not overly smooth, but smooth. Also very consistent. As you can see, there is a little bit of a give there, but it doesn't give too much line variation. No line variation. I think if there is a give in that nib, it's just because of its sheer size, but it's not soft. Now, when I compare it to the medium 630, much better than 930. Smoother. A little bit of bounce. Just an inch of bounce. But it's got everything to do with the grip. I feel much more comfortable with the 630. Much more comfortable. And it is much smoother. This is a medium. Can hardly feel no feedback. But it's not because it's different that it necessarily means the medium nib is no good. Don't get me wrong. It's still a very, very nice nib. Very nice nib. Okay? Comparable to a stiff medium Chinese nib. Okay? Now, let's do the broad. First of all, I don't see any spillage, okay, which is good news. So this is the, wow, Wingsung Junlai or Junlai 930 black and gold. The nib is a number 9 steel broad nib, and the ink is Iroshizuku Gonpeki. Okay, the line is broad, if not double broad, gusher smooth. Ultra smooth. Very wet and consistent. No line variation. It's a stiff nib, okay? Any semblance of give is really a function of the size of that nib, as opposed to, it's not soft. That's my view. The writing experience is much better on the 930, much better than on the than on a 930 broad. Is better than the 930 medium. It's just so smooth. Now, let me just, okay, does it compare to my broad Pelican? Pelican is softer. The M1000, that is, much softer. It's got spring versus fairly stiff 930. But it's just as much in terms of gushers. Both are gushers. Okay, so there you have it. Had a lot of fun here. A lot of fun. Now, likes and dislikes. Likes, I like the design. I like the build quality. Very good. I don't see any flaws there. Okay. I think the nib, the broad, It's a lot of fun because it's ultra smooth and wet. I think the value at about, what is it, about $50. It's 10 on 10. Okay. Is it a go-to pen? I think so. But let's look at the dislikes. The design, it's a copy of the 149 and the 630. The nib and size take away from writing experience. My fingers' tendency to slide down the section. I don't think this is a pen for long sessions. Some would argue that it's too wet. To the point where you're losing control. So you could argue both ways, if you will. Okay? But so if you don't, can't write with a big pen, this is not for you. This is huge. Okay? And the combination of that long nib with the thickness of that section make it such that it might take away from the writing experience. The advantage, though, of this broad anyway, is that it's so much fun because it's ultra smooth. Okay? And it's a go-to if you like writing with a big pen. In terms of the medium, I mean, I would give the same likes. In the dislike column, I would say that it's finer than a medium should be. But it's just a smooth but stiff. And that finer line comes from the fact that for a big nib, it's fairly stiff. Because I noticed that the moment I press on it just a little bit, as I'm doing now, and I really have to press, then the medium line kind of has a tendency to come out. So as I compared to, you can see that there's a little bit of difference there. Okay? But still very nice. There you go. Would I recommend purchasing this pen? Absolutely. You've got to put a big pen like this in your hands and have fun with it. So if you want fountain pen therapy, definitely buy the pen. Especially the broad. You'll have a lot of fun. If you want to use this pen for long writing sessions, I think it's too big. And unless you have these huge hands, like Doodlebutt, for example, might even like this. But sometimes it's not even a question of having big hands. It's, as I mentioned to you, I have a tendency, because I don't know, it kind of slides down. So I always keep going up, and then it slides down. Is it because it doesn't have a flare to stop? Maybe. I think it would help if it had a flare. It's got a little bit of a flare there, but it's not much, it's got a ring that's a little bit wider than the section, but the section doesn't have a flare. So and there's a long distance between the end of that nib, the fingers and the end of that nib, that make it such that I don't think it's the greatest pen for long writing sessions. That's what I'm saying. But if you want to have some fun with it, folks, for $50, I mean, you can't compare the fun you can have with this with some of the more expensive pens that cost you $200. And Yowo nib, and you walk out, and yeah, it's got a nice resin, and you can look at it, and say, wow, it's Brooks or whatever. But you're not having any fun with the pen. It's a Yowo nib. I mean, it's a steel Yowo nib. Here you got a Wingsung nib. And the broad, wow. Even smoother than Schmidt broads in a Bennu pen, for example. Much smoother than that. I'm telling you, it's as smooth as my Pelikan M1000, except my M1000, it's got bounce. That gold nib really bounces. The Wingsung doesn't. Okay, yeah, the Wingsung doesn't. So there you have it. I recommend it. Have fun with it, folks. Please subscribe. If you have any comments, let me know. Did you receive your pen? What's your take on this? Let me know. We're going to revisit this pen, because it is the type of pen that you want to take time to write with, and maybe during the recap we'll revisit and see if I've changed my mind or if I've discovered anything else worthy of mention for this pen. But is it worth the $50? Absolutely. Take care, folks. Enjoy it. Bye now.